In a quiet yet high-stakes diplomatic exchange that could redefine African continental politics, Burkina Faso's transitional president, Captain Ibrahim Traoré, sent a firm message to the African Union. Africa must stop managing crises with old tools. The meeting, held on June 17, 2025 in Ouagadougou, wasn't just symbolic, it was strategic, it was deliberate, and for many across the Sahel region, it was long overdue. At its center was a conversation between two opposing but deeply entangled forces, the AU representing constitutional order and continental norms, and the Alliance of Sahel states representing a new breed of African leadership forged in instability, conflict, and self-determination. The Sahel region, once seen as a buffer zone, is now the continent's most volatile fault line. Terrorist activity has surged, state legitimacy has crumbled, and people caught in the middle have grown disillusioned with traditional governance models that fail to deliver either peace or prosperity. In response, a political and military realignment has emerged. Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger, all governed by military juntas following recent coups, have formed the Alliance of Sahel States, AES, a security pact that has rapidly evolved into a political counterweight to ECOWAS and increasingly the African Union itself. The African Union dispatched António Tete, the special envoy of Angolan President João Lourenço, the current chair of the AU, on what was described as a listening mission. This marked the first formal engagement between the AU and the Traoré-led transitional government since Burkina Faso's suspension from the Union in 2022. But what the envoy heard was not mere diplomacy, it was a challenge to reimagine Africa's future. Captain Ibrahim Traoré made it unequivocal. We are not here to plead, we are here to be understood. Africa does not need pity. It needs power. It needs sovereignty. Behind closed doors, Traoré reportedly rejected foreign-drafted roadmaps and instead called for African-led solutions that reflect local will and the realities on the ground. This message places the African Union in a difficult position. On one hand, it must uphold the Constitutive Act, which condemns unconstitutional changes of government. On the other hand, it must reckon with the fact that traditional democracies, backed by foreign donors and elections, have often collapsed under the weight of corruption, insurgency, and foreign interference. The principle of non-indifference enshrined in Article 4H of the AU Charter obligates the Union to intervene in times of crisis. But Traoré's appeal reframes that principle. Should non-indifference mean exclusion, or should it mean engagement? You cannot claim to protect Africa's people while ignoring the realities they live in. One official close to the talk stated, "The rise of the AES is more than just military alignment. It signals the emergence of a new ideology, one that prioritizes internal security, anti-colonial sovereignty, and African resource control over external validation." Since its formation, AES has expelled French troops and military bases, nationalized certain mining interests, prioritized joint border security without AU oversight. And yet, their biggest challenge isn't military, it's legitimacy. The African Union, by refusing to recognize transitional governments, has pushed the AES into further isolation, or depending on one's view, self-reliance. This meeting in Ouagadougou suggests the beginning of a soft thaw. Many observers were quick to draw parallels between Traoré's rhetoric and the legacy of Thomas Sankara, Burkina Faso's former revolutionary leader who championed self-sufficiency, pan-African solidarity, and resistance to imperialism. Like Sankara, Traoré frames governance not through Western lenses of democracy, but through African legitimacy, arguing that governance must be functional, local, and rooted in national interest, not foreign approval. When Traoré says we need power, not pity, he is reactivating an old current in African political thought, one that the AU has ignored for too long, said Dr. Amadou Balde, a political historian in Dakar. No press conference was held, no joint communiqué issued, but according to sources present, the tone was respectful, and the underlying message from the AU was one of quiet recalibration. The African Union appears to recognize that sanctions, suspensions, in diplomatic silence have not brought the Sahel back to stability. By engaging in this listening visit, the AU is testing a new approach, cautious, quiet, and unpublicized, but nonetheless significant. And while the visit doesn't yet signal full reintegration, it opens a door that may lead to future recognition, structured dialogue, and even eventual readmission. This meeting sets a precedent. If the African Union can begin engaging with suspended governments through constructive diplomacy, rather than moral ultimatums, it could pave the way for new conflict resolution mechanisms tailored to regional realities, greater Pan-African cooperation on counterterrorism, more inclusive definitions of governance that account for transitional leadership, a stronger, more unified African voice in global geopolitical arenas. But it also raises tough questions. How does the AU ensure accountability without alienating states that challenge its frameworks? Can a new Pan-Africanism rise that includes military-led governments without undermining democracy? The June 17th meeting may not have made global headlines, but make no mistake, it was a diplomatic inflection point. In choosing to engage, the African Union has acknowledged a truth many have quietly feared. The continent's political center of gravity is shifting. Whether it evolves into cooperation or confrontation will depend on how both sides interpret this moment. But one thing is clear. The age of listening without responding is over. And the message from Ouagadougou is unmistakable. Don't pity us. Partner with us. This is the African Scoop. For more on African diplomacy, rising alliances, and the future of continental unity, stay tuned.